actually, I'm going to start with Freddie. Okay, so Freddie, I'm sorry, and happy Father's Day to everyone as well.
Thank you.
How you doing, boys? All right? Yeah, you're happening. So Freddie's first question was, how is Phil? And obviously he was concerned about his health, and since he was ill the last few days of the USA tour. Well, Phil's great. Phil has bounced back incredibly well. He's his mischievous self as ever, and it was a shame that he did, he was poorly during the tour, but he, bless him, the show must go on in true UFO fashion. The show went on, and he did, remarkably well. I can't begin to tell you, as a singer, sort of sorts myself, that the voice is one of those things that if it goes, and you are it, and it's your only instrument, you've got nothing to hide behind. So I think Phil did remarkably well to sort of just battle through, and it wasn't easy for him. But I think that his main worry was that it was going to cause long-lasting damage, and he didn't want that. So that's why we pulled the Atlanta show. And I've never in my memory known of a UFO. Kate, you may know this, but I've never known, apart from extenuating circumstances, I've never known health.
They're the ones you've seen.
Yeah, we don't talk about those. But I've never known them to call shows, for a health reason. So I think we had to take it seriously, and also it's that time of the year where it's it's not a very good time of the year anyway to be touring. Particularly when you're in your 70s as well. You have to bear that in mind as well. So, but he's doing well. I speak to him most. I message him. I speak to him every other day. So he's doing pretty well. Plans for rescheduling shows. There are suggestions that we may do the South American shows next year. So I think we're just all waiting to see on that one. And of course, South America, being as South America is at the moment, it's a bit dodgy whether, even next year in maybe April, May, June, whatever, who knows what it will be like. It's so difficult to predict how things are going to go. And South America's been quite hit by it now, I think I understand. So I think we have to be fairly fluid about how we think. But of course it'd be lovely. I mean, I was so excited about going to South America. I've never been to South America. So for me, it was a real excitement to be going. So I was quite saddened that we just couldn't, and particularly the show in Mexico City was in a velodrome. It was a massive velodrome in Mexico. And I think it was something in the region of 60,000 people. I might be wrong, but I think it was a massive show. So that would have been incredible to do. It would have been really, really incredible to do. But alas and alack, it was not to be this year, but you never know. You never know. And the European shows have come back on for maybe next year. So again, we'll wait and see. Today in Lanzarote was the first day we had a plane from another country today for 3 months. And so that was quite a major thing for us, but the Spanish lockdown has been very severe. And it was the first plane from outside. So we'll see how that goes. We know we'll be locked down again next week, if someone comes over with the virus. So there we are. Do I know if any of the Last Orders dates were recorded for a possible live release? None as yet. Again, that's a slightly fluid situation because we don't really know what's going to happen with the future shows. I think it would be lovely. I tell you, the good thing about these days is YouTube. I've seen so many brilliant recordings. I saw one a bloke had done in America where it was on multi-cameras. And he'd managed to piece it all together, and it was like a professional, as good as you would get with the limitations of that, with professional, with cutting in and all that sort of thing. And my friend Darren Mooney, who plays with Primal Scream, who played with Gary the last time, he said they did a lot of recording on those little tiny little cameras, so those GoPro cameras. So I think it's possible. But I think it has to be something that we feel, or they feel, would be a viable, saleable item. And, it's just when and where. That's the thing, But it would be nice. I mean, I think all of us said, well, that'd be nice, So it's just a question of doing it, But we shall see, Freddie. We'll see anyway. But great questions, Painty. Thank you very much indeed. That's fantastic. Really, really good. Okay, right. Now, question number 2, he said. So what have we got now? Mark Coles. I like this question, Mark. Mark said, the big white hollow-bodied Gibson you played in the early 80s seemed unusual at the time. Yes, we could say that, i.e. not the conventional rock-oriented instrument. Was it nice to play? And do you still have it? Right, well, the quick answer, was it nice to play? No, it was a nightmare on legs, the legs being mine. We used to play at quite a high volume in those days. And unfortunately, the thing, even though it was stuffed full of tampons, it kept feeding back continually on stage, and it was a difficult piece to tame. It looked good, you know, it was Phil's idea, that Mog, I do blame him for this, but it was Phil's idea, and it looked fine, you know, it was a bit big on me. I think it was actually bigger than I am, but having said that, it was a bit of a monster to tame. And it wasn't set up very well. And I just think, you know, to be honest, I got given a slightly poisoned chalice with that. But I went with it, you know, for a year or so, but I couldn't wait to get shot at the bloody thing. And in fact, it went to Phil, snaggled it in the end. And I don't know what happened to it. He's probably got it under his bed. He has lots of things like that under his bed. So it could be
that contrast to the guitar that you used later with Gary Moore, which is simply a pickup, a volume pot, and an output jack.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, these days, I you know, simplicity is everything for me. I mean, a man who's not on this setup asked me what my favourite guitar was. It's very difficult because I've been through so many over the years. I like the ones I've got now. I've got the one that the guy made for me in Connecticut, which is very kind of him. You know, I'm looking at other things, but again, it depends what happens if we don't get to tour for a while. I don't know. But the Gibson Nighthawk that I bought from the guy who plays in a bar in Lanzarote, believe it or not, I didn't have a guitar. All my guitars went before we moved down here, and I had to actually very quickly go and buy a guitar, and I bought that Gibson Nighthawk, and it suits me perfectly because it sounds good, and it's very light because I'm getting old, and so I don't have to, and I can throw it around and it will just work quite happily, and that's fine. You know what I mean? So the other one is quite heavy, but the Nighthawk is really, really good. So it just suited me for the time, you know, that I had it. Am I wobbling around? I am wobbling around. Am I waffling, Kate? Have you got the waffle on?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
All right, very good. Right.
Keep going.
Yeah, I'm keeping going. But anyway, so a long answer to a short question, but it was a bit of a nightmare to play, Mark. It really was. It was, and in fact, there's a DVD from Dortmund, and I can hear the blooming thing feeding back as I'm doing things, and I'm trying to control this bloody thing, and it was really horrible at the top of the fretboard as well. It wasn't. It made my life a little bit more difficult than it needed to be. So well, it looked.
What did you have as a spare in that case then?
Ooh, I had the guitar I came to Wild Horses with, which was a Gibson. Oh God, what was it? A funny looking thing I've never seen before or since. I want to say no, it wasn't an ES something. I would have to look this up. I might try and put it on Facebook if I can find it. There's some pictures of me with UFO at Reading Festival playing it. And it's a funny thing. Again, it's on my story of playing funny guitars. It was a really weird thing, but it was the only guitar I walked away from Wild Horses with, because I had a Les Paul that Brian had bought for me, but it was taken back when I left. So I didn't get to keep that guitar. And in fact, I could just see behind Graham, there is that evil white guitar. Just behind Graham on the left-hand side, there it is, yeah. But yeah, so I had a couple of spares. I used to borrow Paul Chapman's guitars. Used to borrow his Firebird and a couple of other things, you know. So lots of different guitars through the years. Ibanez, Hamer, God, everything under the sun. You know, so many of them over there, and I don't have one of them anymore. They all went with the coal. So yeah, so there we go. All right, now going into question number 3. Okay, Heck, where's Heck? Hey Hector, how you doing? And that boy, all the way from Glasgow. Goodness me. Okay. Heck asked me about playing the Glasgow Apollo, which was to the American contingent. Glasgow Apollo was a venue that was very much on the circuit, the solid concert circuit of the United Kingdom, going back into the early 80s. And I think it closed. Hey, do you know when it closed?
84.
85. Yeah, 84, 85. Yeah, so it was legendary, the Glasgow Apollo, because the stage was, I think, 15 foot high. And we always used to joke it was to stop people getting on, because if you didn't like it, they might come and throttle you. Probably not true at all. And it was a very odd stage because it had a camber on it. And I remember, I have slight vertigo, and I remember always standing on that stage thinking I was going to go headlong into the crowd, and you'd be doing your usual showing off and moving about bit, and I was always convinced I was going to go toppling off the edge of the stage. So, but the crowd in Glasgow were really good. They were always a really warm crowd. And Heck asked me what are my favourite or were favourite venues to play live over the years. And I think it's true to say, without any disrespect to the south of England, as you get up further up the north, as you go further north in England, the crowds get slightly wilder. Well, they did in those days. I haven't played in England at all for years and years and years, but I just remember it getting wilder as you got north. So I always liked playing places like Glasgow, places that at the time were quite depressed, like Newcastle, Liverpool. The crowds were always brilliant because it was just a question of just letting off steam and going bonkers. In America, I always personally like playing the West Coast and Texas and the Midwest, Chicago. You know, a lot of other places are brilliant, but I didn't, you know, I liked the nice, well, I don't know, it's very difficult to say this without offending anyone, but I quite like places like Los Angeles and, you know, the places in Texas, Florida, you know, they're me, really, you know, but that is no disrespect to any other point, any place anywhere in the world, but I quite like LA as a place. I just do it, and it's just one of the things I always have done. In Europe, some of the concerts in Germany, we did with Gary Moore, we did a short tour with Queen. We did about 3 dates with them on their final tour, a kind of magic tour. And one of them was a place in Germany where they held the rallies in Nuremberg. And it was something in the region of 80 to 90,000 people. And I just remember thinking, this really doesn't get a lot better. You know, there's a massive crowd, you know, going potty, because Gary's career had started to really take off in Germany. And remember how much I enjoyed doing that. And Sweden, you know, Stockholm, the Ice Stadium, all these places, you know, the Madison Square Garden, you know, doing all these iconic places that some of them in England aren't there anymore, you know, they've been closed or whatever, you know. So I would think I was very fortunate to be playing in the early 80s where some of these places were still going, you know, some of these iconic rock venues or gigs, you know, the LA Forum, I don't know if that's still going, LA Forum, Cow Palace in San Francisco, all these places are really iconic places down on the green, you know, really great places to be and play. So it was, I think I've been very fortunate to do. So that, again, heck, that's a very long answer to your question, but she got the waffle on it again. Yeah, okay, so there we go. Right, so there we go, I hope that answers that. Wendy, hello dear, hello. Hello, love, how are you doing?
Are you hunkering down? Huh?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. Yeah, very good indeed. Okay, Wendy asked me, when the UFO tour wraps up, whenever that will be, will you think about putting together a group to do an album tour? And if so, what kind of music would this ensemble play? I think at the moment it's very difficult to say because, to be honest, I'd retired. So apart from doing a little bit of examining, I had no thoughts whatsoever of doing this again. So therefore, now having thrust back into it, I have been doing a little bit of writing. People always say to me, would you consider doing your own album? I'm not sure whether I've got the patience to do it, but I could, you know, I mean, at some point, I don't know, it depends how the muse goes. If I feel like I really want to do it, I will do it. But I've been asked this quite a lot since I came back to the group, and I don't know, there's something lovely about playing with UFO that is very special to me, and whether I'd want to go and do my own project somewhere else, I don't know whether I could imagine it, but it would be rock, I think. Although I still play quite a lot of classical music, Wendy, I do play, you know, I still trot out the clarinet, and I play with a lot of bands here in Lanzarote, but they're sort of like municipal bands, you know, they're very, very sort of basic, but I quite enjoy that because it's given me a chance to play the clarinet again, which I stopped doing for such a long time. So yeah, so, you know, again, short, long answer, you never know. I'm not ruling anything out at all. All right, anything at all. You cannot say what's going to happen. So we don't know where life's going to take us at this point in time. So there we go. Okay, so now looking along, who I've got here? I've got Graham, I've got Paul. Right, okay, so I'm here. Okay. Now, so Paul Alex. Okay, now, Paul, are you Paul Raffanello?
No, but I could be if that makes life easier.
You never know. You never know. I don't think where your question is because you can't see it.
Number 11.
Number 11, which was, oh, Paul, sorry, yeah, not going. Okay, now, how does he find 2019-20 UFO compare with the 80s lunatic asylum? Ooh la la. Well, there we are. It's lovely. I think that's a very quick way of putting it. It's absolutely lovely. I would never have guessed that I would have been doing this again with the band. I'm trying to think, actually, one of the questions, John D'Souza, is he here? No, he's not. So John was asking me about, was it a difficult decision to step in after Paul Raymond's sad passing? And I had been to see UFO in London. Cousin Kate got me passes to the show in Shepherd's Bush. And normally I wouldn't have been bothered, to be honest. I would have said, no, I can't go, I just can't. And I was working in Kent, which is quite a way away where I was, away from seeing the band, you know, where they were playing. And I thought to myself, I'll make the effort, because I hadn't seen them since 1983. So I hadn't been to a UFO concert for a very, very, very long time. I thought, I'm never going to get the chance, I'll go. And schlepped up to London, and it was so incredibly charming and such a lot of fun. And I'd seen Phil a bit, you know, a few times, but I hadn't realised what he turned into, a stand-up comedian. It charmed me completely. And I was looking at the crowd thinking, my God, you're loving this, aren't you? And I've got a little video I took of Only You Could Rock Me, and I just think I'd have this goofy smile on my face the entire time. So it really, actually, to be honest, was not a difficult decision. The only difficulty was sort of thinking, would I be able to do it? You know, myself, would I be able to play the guitar again? I had very sore fingers for a very, very long time. Muscle memory is a very true thing. It was incredible, the muscle memory. I couldn't believe how quickly it all came back. And that was a big surprise to me. And also because they're family, they're like a family. So it was so easy coming back into it, you know, it really was. They made me so very welcome. It was obviously very, very sad. And again, they were incredibly shocked. It was very sudden, Paul's passing. But in time-honoured UFO tradition, you know, pick yourself up, off you go. And yeah, I think it would have been a great shame for us not to do the dates in Europe, and for them not to do that part of the American bit of the tour, because, you know, we could do it. You know, it was quite, I don't think they knew 100% if we could do it, but we did do it, you know, and it was really, really fun. So, you know, it was just a bit odd for them, but not so odd if it had been a complete stranger. You know, I think it was easy because I knew them. And it was like, when you've known people, although you haven't seen them for a long time, and you've been that close to working when you were working with them, to be honest, it's so easy. It's like a relative you've not seen for a long time, and you just sort of, you know, you fall back into it again. And I haven't laughed so much in my life for so many years. You know, we just had, once the initial thing was over, the initial shock with Paul, there was a bit of a 6-week gap between their tour finishing and the new tour starting, or 8 weeks. And it was just quite, you know, we had to be adult about it and just get on and do it. And it was fun. It was just fun. I really have enjoyed the experience. So, you know, the complete and utter chaos of the 80s, early 80s UFO, which was pretty chaotic at times. It was very funny at times, you know, it was incredibly funny, but there was some very not so much fun moments, and none of that is there anymore. It's just complete and utter undefined enjoyment. And I'm very sad, and if you told me this a year and a half ago, I'm actually incredibly sad that we can't be doing what we're doing. You know, I really am. And I would have never guessed that, because I had no intention whatsoever of going back to any form of rock music at all. You know, so it just goes to show you can never say never. So, and actually your second question is hysterical. Does he honestly think any school would take him back after this? Well, yeah, thankfully they don't have to, because like I said, I retired. The only strange thing is examining, because I examine music. That's what I've left. That's the last thing I've left to do. And I go into these very erstwhile schools in England, and they play a game now, Google the Examiner. And of course, then I walk in and they're just sort of looking at me like this, you know, thinking, what the hell have we got to examine high-grade violins doing, you know, X, Y, and Z. But I've sort of paid my dues over the years, you know, as a music teacher. I did all that, and I did all the proper thing, and, you know, like the convention thing. And I came from teaching in a very good school. So, and they're fascinated by it. They're absolutely fascinated by it. And when I was doing it last summer, it was incredible. I was just, you know, they were asking, we've seen all these pictures, what are you doing? You know, so people take it in good heart. You know, I did think people might be a bit strange about it, but they're very good, you know, because people pay a lot of money to take these exams. They pay for one of the exams, they pay over £150, so you know, €170, you know, whatever, you know, so they're paying a lot of money for your opinion, you know, and if it's rubbish, you know, they're not going to be very happy, you know. So I'm hoping that I can still hold that end of it up whilst doing this end, you know, if you know what I mean. So yeah, so there we go. Paul Chapman questions. Okay, it's very, very poignant point of the chat. How did I find working with Paul? Always an absolute joy. I don't think there was ever a crossword between Paul and I. We got on extremely well, and you can't say that with, you know, about everyone you work with, but he and I got very, very well, and he was empathetic. He was very warm. He was a bit of a rascal. He was a bit of a lovable rogue, and I liked that about him because it endeared you to him, you know. And he would be mischievous. Him and Pete as a combination were quite incredible. The unstoppable twins, and then you had Phil sort of stirring into the little mix, you know. It was never a dull moment. It was never a dull moment with him, you know. And even in the latter bits of 1983, when it was all going horribly wrong, we still had that humour between us. You know, he and I got on incredibly well. And working on Making Contact was great because it was down to him and I to pull it together, to, you know, do lots of the writing and doing lots of the arrangements of the songs, and you know, Andy was there, but you know, Andy had things he was doing as well. So you know, there were lots of personal things going on as well. It was, you know, all of this stuff has been documented over the years in various periodicals and publications. But we got on with it, and you know, I'm very sad that he's not around anymore. Incredibly sad that he's not around anymore. You know, he was a very, very, very nice man. And if you looked up character in the dictionary, there would be Paul. You know, because he was such a character, you know, a well-loved character by all of us. And I had to break the news to Phil, and he was just gobsmacked, you know, and he really was. He was completely, utterly gobsmacked. And it's not been a very good year, you know, like in the last year and a half for previous members of UFO. We had Larry Wallace, of course, we had Paul Raymond, you know, so it's not been a great year really. And I know someone asked me, very interesting question, but someone asked me a question: if I put together a super group of all the people that I'd worked with through the years, you know, who would it be? And I thought, well, I wouldn't answer that because you might offend people that are still going, you know what I mean? But so many people that I've worked with, it's very sad, have passed on now. You know, it's a really, really sad fact of life. And there's one lineup particularly of the Gary Moore band, and I'm the only one that's still living. So, you know, it's Craig Gruber, Bobby Chenard and Gary. And, you know, you get into the point of going, ooh, you know, it is a fact of life, but it's very sad as you get older, you know, to know. So, you know, but I think apparently there's going to be a celebration of Paul's life in September, and they're streaming it, apparently, so I understand. So I'm hoping, I mean, obviously it'll be difficult for me to go from here, but, you know, we'll probably, hopefully will be to do with that, you know, and we'll remember Paul, you know, in only the best possible way, because he was that sort of person you can only think good when you think of Paul, you know, definitely. And a favourite Tonka story, a bit of a double-edged sword, because most of the Tonka stories I have are fairly sort of related to interesting things, because it was back in the day, but he was great, he loved cooking. When we recorded at Queen's Studio in Montreux, him and Pete were always getting this crock pot out and cooking, and it was always these concoctions. You never knew quite what was going to appear. And you apparently, I don't think when I was with Paul in the band, but I think in America, when Paul was with it and Paul Raymond was still there the first time, I think he used to have a crock pot on the bus and used to have this sort of festering mass of stuff he used to cook, you know. But he, you know, he was such a character. So he won't be forgotten by me, definitely. You know, he'll be someone that I'll always keep in my heart, you know. So yeah, so bless his heart. So